Welcome to Drive the Daf, clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Sukkah Daf Mem Daled discusses the halachos of the mitzvah of arava. At the times of the Beis Hamikdash, it was a special halacha that they took aravos. The Gemara will discuss exactly what they did with it. We've already seen a discussion. It was either stood up against the side of the mizbeach, or the kohanim circled the mizbeach with it in their hands. This was a special mitzvah that was performed in the Beis Hamikdash all the 7 days of Sukkot, and extra times on one of the days, what we call today Hoshana Rabbah. Now, the Gemara has a number of questions about it. The Gemara wants to know what the source is. Is it deraisa, derabanan? Is it a minig? Is it a takana? Where is it from? The Gemara wants to know what exactly the shear is. How exactly is it meant to be done? The Gemara will discuss all of this, and the daf will end off with a series of statements said unrelated, but said by the same Talmid Chacham who said a number of these. So the Gemara begins by first asking, why do we not do Zecher L'Mikdash through the mitzvah of Arava? And this will take us into the discussion of what the source is. Now we know that there is a mitzvah in the Beis Hamikdash to do Arava all 7 days, and there's also a mitzvah in the Beis Hamikdash to take the lulav and esrog all 7 days of Yantif. Now, outside the Beis Hamikdash, there's only a mitzvah to take lulav and esrog once, only on the first day deraisa. But we do Zecher L'Mikdash. We take it all 7 days to remember the mitzvah as it was performed in the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara wants to know, why don't you do the same thing for Arava? Take Arava all 7 days, Zecher L'Mikdash. So this question was asked from Abaye to Rabbah, and the Gemara has 3 attempts at an answer. Rabbah's answer was that the lulav itself has an arava in it, and we're yaitz to the mitzvah with the arava that's in the lulav, and you pick up the lulav, you're also doing the mitzvah of arava. That's the Zecher L'Mikdash for all 7 days. So the Gemara rejects this. The Gemara says that you can't be yaitz a different mitzvah while you're doing this mitzvah. You're holding the arava there, l'shem mitzvahs dalad minim, not in order to do the mitzvah of arava. So you're not yaitz to the mitzvah of arava with that. So the Gemara says maybe you pick it up twice. Once for the mitzvah of for minim, and once for arava. So the Gemara rejects that too. The Gemara says we don't do that. You don't see people lifting it up twice for 2 different mitzvahs. So the Gemara says a different proposal. The Gemara says that Rav Zvid said maybe the reason is because we don't want to do Zecher L'Mikdash because the entire mitzvah of arava is only derabanan. And this will get us into the discussion of what is the source. It's only derabanan. Lulav, which we do Zecher L'Mikdash, because in the Beis Hamikdash it was a mitzvah deraisa to take the lulav all 7 days. So therefore, the rest now in Eretz Yisrael we do a zecher for that mitzvah deraisa. But arava was only a mitzvah derabanan, and therefore we don't do zecher l'mikdash for a mitzvah derabanan. So the Gemara says, but it's not true. It was not a mitzvah derabanan. And here the Gemara brings a machlokes between the Chachamim and Abba Shaul as to what the source is. According to Abba Shaul, it's a mitzvah deraisa, learned out of Arvei Nachal. The Torah describing Arava calls it plural, Arvei, to say that there are 2 mitzvahs. One is the Arava in the Lulav, and the other is the Arava in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, according to the Rabbanan, it's halacha l'Moshe miSinai. It's not written anywhere, but it's halacha l'Moshe miSinai. That also counts as a deraisa. That's not a derabanan. So it's not derabanan according to anybody. So how could you answer me that it's only derabanan? So the Gemara therefore resorts to a third answer. The Gemara quotes Rav Zvid in the name of Rava again, and he says as follows. The reason is because the lulav, which we take 7 days in the Beis Hamikdash deraisa, there is some mitzvah of lulav in the rest of Eretz Yisrael. We do it 1 day deraisa in the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, we do Zecher L'Mikdash all 7 days. Arava, outside the Beis Hamikdash, there is no mitzvah of Arava at all. So we can't do Zecher L'Mikdash for the 7 days that there was a mitzvah in the Beis Hamikdash if there's nothing at all outside the Beis Hamikdash, and that's why we don't do any Zecher L'Mikdash based on that. Okay, now the Gemara focuses on the statement which we had said that Arava's halacha l'Moshe miSinai. We had quoted it. It was our source was Rav Asi named Rav Yechanan and named Rav Nechunya Ish Bekas, who said that there are 3 halachos that are halacha l'Moshe miSinai. We've seen this list before. Nesach Hamayim, the Eser Netios, and Arava. Arava is one of the 3 on the list. So now, what we have here is Rav Yechanan saying that Arava is halacha l'Moshe miSinai. The Gemara wants to focus on this, and the Gemara brings a couple of discussions that this statement is relevant to. First of all, the Gemara quotes Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says that Kohanim circled the Mizbeach of the Aravos, and says Rish Lakish, a Kohen with a mum is therefore allowed to go between the Ulam, the building of the Beis Hamikdash, the Ulam, and the Mizbeach, during this Arava mitzvah performance, because you have to circle it, and therefore they're circling the Beis Hamikdash. They're circling the Mizbeach. You have to walk all the way around the Mizbeach. So you have to go between the Mizbeach and the Ulam, and they're also involved in the mitzvah. They're also taking the Arava and going around. So the Gemara says, Rav Yochanan asked him, "Who said? Who said?" So now the Gemara understands who said, meaning who said that there's a chiyuv to do this. Who said that there's such a mitzvah that you're allowing Bali Mumin to go where they're normally allowed to go between the Mizbech and the Ulam. So Gemara says, what do you mean who said? We just said, Rav Yochanan said, he himself said that it's a halacha l'Moshe Messinai. So Gemara says, he wasn't asking who said that there's a chiyuv to do it. Gemara says he was saying who says, first of all, that Bali Mumin are allowed to do it. That's question number one. Maybe only Kohanim without a mum are allowed to do it. Second of all, who said there's a mitzvah to walk around the Mizbeach with it? Maybe they only leaned it against the side of the Mizbeach. That was the question that we had over here. Now, the Gemara has another discussion which relates to the fact that Rav Yochanan said this. This is a discussion between Rav Yochanan and Rav Yeshua ben Levi. They have a machlokes. What is the source of the mitzvah of Arava? One says it's a takana of the Nevi'im. The Gemara calls it Yisoid Nevi'im, that they said this is a mitzvah that we should do. Everybody do this. And the other is it's just a minig, which it's a custom that the Nevi'im got people into. So Nevi'im here refers to the late Nevi'im, Zechariah, Malachi, and Chagai. So the Gemara, they made a lot of takanas for Klal Yisrael. So what's the difference between a takana and a midig? Rashi explains the difference is whether you make a bracha. Takana is something they said to do, so there's a bracha. If it's just a minig that they introduced, then we would not make a bracha on that. So the Gemara says it's probably that Rav Yochanan is the one who said that it's an actual takana, because we have Rav Bavo quoting Rav Yochanan saying that it's an actual takana. So the Gemara asks, how could you say Rav Yochanan said it's a takanas Nevi'im? Rav Yochanan said it's halacha l'Moshe Messinai, and we quote the same comment from before. Rav Yochanan and Rav Nachman Yesh Bekas, saying that it's halacha l'Moshe Messinai. So the Gemara says that he was shocked. He said, "Oh, this is a problem. I have here a quote from Rabbi Avo that it's takanas Nevi'im, but you have a quote of Rav Yochanan that it's halacha l'Moshe Messinai. So what do we do?" So he said, so they forgot the halacha. It was really halacha l'Moshe Messinai, but it was forgotten. And then the Nevi'im came and they restored the halacha. Someone says, that can't be. Rav Yochanan has said, in a different incident, has said that there was more Torah in Bavel than there was in Eretz Yisrael. So how could it be that where these Nevi'im were, they forgot the halacha? It can't be. And what was that incident? That incident was that if Kahana, who was a Talmud of Rav, fled from his hometown in Bavel to go be with Rav Yochanan in Eretz Yisrael because he was accused of a crime, and Rav Yochanan was very impressed with his learning. So you see, anyway, that Rav Yochanan did not say and would not say that they forgot the halacha. So how could you say that over here? So the Gemara therefore says it's a different answer. One is talking about in the Beis Hamikdash, and one is talking about in the rest of Eretz Yisrael. That's where we say that in the Mikdash it's halacha l'Moshe Messinai. That's what he was referring to there. The rest of Eretz Yisrael, there it's takanas Nevi'im to do it everywhere in Eretz Yisrael as well. Okay, now the Gemara says a couple of halachas about how you do the mitzvah of Arava. Rav Ami says there's a minimum size for the Aravos, and you have to hold it itself. You can't hold it together with anything else. And the third halacha is that when you take the lulav that has an Arava in it, you're not yaitza. Whereas, well, obviously, in the lulav, it's bound up together with other things. You told me you're not supposed to hold it with other things. The Gemara says, no, maybe you would think if you pick up the lulav twice, you are yaitza. Once the shem lulav, once the shem Arava, maybe you are yaitza. And it's coming to tell me you're not yaitza. You have to hold the Arava separately, alone by itself. Now, the Gemara quotes that Rav Chizda says in the name of Rav Yitzchak that a person is yaitza the mitzvah of Arava with the Arava that's in the lulav itself, disagreeing with Rav Ami. Now, what is the minimum size? So Rav Nachman says you need 3 sticks of Arava, and they have to have freshness to it. They can't be dried. They have to have leaves on them. So Rav Shesha says ala echad ubad echad, which sounds like 1 stick and 1 leaf. So the Gemara asks, what's the point of having a leaf? Just 1 leaf? What's a leaf? So the Gemara says, no, we didn't mean 1 stick and 1 leaf. We meant 1 stick with 1 leaf on it. The Gemara now brings some evidence as to whether or not the mitzvah of Arava is a takanas Nevi'im or a minig Nevi'im, the question of whether or not you say a bracha on it. And then the Gemara will bring a list of statements of Rav Evo quoting Rav Elazar ben Rav Tzadok. So the reason for that is because he's going to be the first one to weigh in here. First of all, Evo says that I was once standing in front of Elazar of a tzaddik. Somebody came and brought him an arava, and he shook it, and did not say a bracha. You see, he holds that it's a minig of an Nevi'im, not an actual takana. Then the Gemara says, Evo and Chizki, who are the grandchildren of Rav, once brought arava to Rav, and again, he shook it and did not say a bracha on it. He also held that it's a minig of an Nevi'im. Now the list. So Evo says, I was standing in front of Elazar of Tzaddik, and somebody came in front of him and said, this is the following situation that I have. I own villages, I own vineyards, and I own olive trees. The people in the villages are hoeing the ground near the vineyards in order to help it, and it's Shemitah. So as payment, I'm allowing them to pick from my olive trees. Is that good or no good? So he said, it's no good. It's no good. You're using your Shemitah produce to pay salaries. You're not allowed to. So, okay. So he said, so he went and he said, he accepted the rulings. Said Rav Elazar bar Tzaddik, I've never seen somebody keep the halachos of Shemitah and go in such a straight path as well as this guy who wants to keep the halachos exactly right, and he's asking this shayla. So what should he do? So he said to him, what you should do is you should make your olives hefker, because they're supposed to be hefker, they're for aniyim, they're open to the poor, and the workers who are hoeing the field, you should pay them with actual coins that you have. Now the Gemara says, are you allowed to hoe the ground during Shemitah? The Torah says, the Shviyas Tishmatana unatashta. Tishmatana means leave it blank, leave it open, don't hoe it. And the tashta means don't clear out the stones. So why are you allowed to do this? So the Gemara answers, there's two types of hoeing. One is to save the tree from damage because of cracks in the ground where the roots are exposed. That you're allowed to do. You aren't allowed to improve the crop, but you're allowed to save the tree from damage. You don't need to lose your trees. But to help the crop, that you are not allowed to do. Next thing, Evo said, and Abraham Elazar bar Tzaddik, a person should not walk on Erev Shabbos more than 3 parsois. He should not travel that far, because when he gets to where it is that he's going, he may not have any food. He should instead stay home and prepare the meal. It says Rav Kahana that was only said if he's going home, because when he gets home, they're not expecting him, and therefore they will not have any food for him, and he'll be upset at them. However, if he's going to visit somebody else, he's not going to be assuming that there's food there, and he'll bring along his own food, and it's okay. Some say the other way around. Some say if you're going home, it's actually not as much of a problem, because you might have some food there. If you're going to visit someone else, he's for sure not going to have any food for you. But you shouldn't do either of them. You shouldn't go visit someone by traveling 3 parsois away, and you shouldn't go home either, even though it's more likely that they'll have some food for you. The Gemara quotes of Kahana, who says this way, and he says, I once happened, and I went somewhere and I couldn't even find a can of sardines to eat because there was nothing there for me at all. Okay. Next thing, the Gemara refers back to the Mishnah. We had seen that they brought the lulavim to the Beis HaMikdash before Shabbos and organized it, and we had said on the roof of the Itztaba, on the roof of the place where people used to sit, where there were seats laid out. So the Gemara says, what they put on the roof for is going to dry out over there, and if it's dried, it becomes puzzle. The Gemara says it wasn't on the roof of the Itztaba, it was on the benches in the Itztaba, and the Gemara describes that there were 2 circles of the benches, one was...
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.